as you can see, my friend Donna is here. We are doing the first of like this new segment that I have, which is where I want to showcase my friends. I want to showcase my work. I want to showcase their work. I want to talk about like things that we've done together. So this is the perfect first interview to do because we're going to do kind of like a two birds, one stone situation because I have worked with Donna and I'll link the blog below, which I actually wrote about working with you and doing like Akashic Records readings, which has been life-changing in 2023, literally. And that's why we're here, because Donna needed to record a case study interview. I wanted to have her on the show. So I was like, hey, you want to do this? And here we are. So I'm excited.
Excited. Me too. First of all, I can't stop smiling because I just love you so much and it's just so fun.
Oh,
And I think as we get into it, that's one of the things that drew me to work with the SEO, because for me, SEO is like, oh my God, I don't know. Like I have to figure it out. And doing stuff like as an entrepreneur, like I'm good in school if I have books and a teacher, but you know, your own teacher, you have to kind of everything's out there and you have to sift through it.
mhm.
And some of it's super technical and you just make it fun and easy. That's really what I'm getting at is, and it can be fun, and SEO is a huge part of your business, which I knew but I didn't really know like the
Mhm.
impact it can have and how to make your business more simple by doing this. And I just love like how you teach and the energy you bring to a subject that's usually not so exciting. It's a little nerdy and not so much. It could be dry with some
Yes.
other people. It could be dry, and I need the fun. So
Yeah, I do too. Well, thank you for that. I wasn't that wasn't part of our agenda, so thank you so much.
yeah,
No,
but
I
it's true.
appreciate.
It's just like, yeah, that's why you're fun to work with, and it's also you're fun to work with. It's for those of you that have ever had like really dry copyright people and or tech people or website people that want you to talk in their language, but you don't know their language. So then I think I'm like, oh, give me a site that's, going to be fun and it's going to look like this. And I want some pop-ups. And then like, they ask me something super technical and I'm like, I don't know what that means. You're able to, because you're creative and everything too, you're able to like get what I'm saying and then process it and be like, oh, this is what you need, which as an entrepreneur, it takes so much time anyway. And it's such a nice relief to work with someone that gets you
Thank
or
you.
and wants to get you.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. And there is like, I mean, you and I have seen this kind of evolve, but like I definitely have an intuition and like a spirit-led, soul-led, guided way of working with people, which sounds weird. And I wonder if I were to like say that in copy, if people would be like, that's too woo-woo, or I can't follow that. But like it just happens. Even yesterday on a call, I knew exactly how this call was gonna go. And it did. And I didn't even say anything. And I was just like, yep, check, check, check. Like we hit all of like, the gas stops and potty breaks. I was like, yeah, I totally expected this.
Well, I think people do though. It's weird. Like if you're from a copy or looking at stuff, especially with what I do in the Akashic Records, trauma work therapy, it's kind of could be a little nebulous. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, how can it really work? And I can I fall between over explaining it to death so people get more confused or just be like, try it out. It's an experience, and because I get frustrated with not so much what I do, but when I present it to copyright writers or business coaches or stuff, they're like, no, don't do this. But I'm like, you have to say it this way. And is anyone really searching that? But I think most people in general, we all want to feel seen, heard, and supported in some way and loved. And if you're with someone that just can listen to what you want or just kind of know and get you like that vibe, that intuition is really a huge part of a business relationship, which I don't know about. I know you gravitate to people like that, and I've
Yeah.
had both. And even if they're not searching it, they want that from someone they're working with. You just do because you want people to get you. You want
Yeah.
to get, right? You're just like, even though that's not proper English for
No, but it's
business.
like so perfect though. I want to
You want
feel
to feel like you
gotten.
really, I know, but like, yeah, you just want someone to be like, oh, yeah, I've been in that place before, or I understand you.
Yeah.
what you're saying isn't crazy or weird. There's nothing wrong with you. And that's why, we're all smart people in the world trying to make sense of stuff, but your ego can get in there to try to prove your um not just your importance, but improve like, hey, I do know what I'm doing,
Mhm.
right? Everyone in this space always talks about authority and blah
Yeah.
blah blah, and like show how, but and trust, but you really trust someone when they get you.
Yeah.
That's really what trust is. The trust isn't like, I know so many and you can see all my degrees.
Mhm.
It's really about like, if I talk to you, will you understand what I'm saying and help me solve whatever this is from that space, other than just giving me more questions or
Yeah.
making me more confused.
Yeah. And that's like the thing that's coming to mind as you're saying that is yesterday. So I was talking with one of my new clients. I'm working with her with like SEO website copywriting. And she shared another name of like someone else that she got a quote from and like a proposal from. And after our call, I went and investigated and I was like, who is this person? This is really cool. Cause I like seeing who else is out there. And if this client was like Brittany or this person or this person, I'm like, cool, who else are they thinking that I am kind of like? So anyway, I went to this lady's website and I'm like, oh, she's got this I'm scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, this gorgeous website. It's so well designed. It's beautiful. It's like user friendly. And I had this realization. I was like, okay, maybe I don't have all of these things, but clearly like our conversation and our vibe and just like she felt gotten, she felt understood, she felt heard and seen. I like that I'm so using that. But like that means more than the pretty website or the other things that we put a lot of value in.
Yes, because at the end of the day, you want whoever you're hiring to help you actually do something as quickly and painlessly and easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, that's really what you want. And I think that's what a lot of business coaches and a lot of people in the space, because they're so used to modeling this hustle, like we have to do it and like give me my 3 points and say my 3 point, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
people don't really talk in 3 points. People
they
don't,
don't.
and it's not like, okay, so you have these 3 points and that's great, but I can't figure out how to work Google console search and I'm not even saying it right. And I didn't even know it was a thing, right? So
Right.
I didn't know that it was a thing, let alone how to use it. So like I need someone to help me through that, to first make me aware and help me use it, not give me a more cliche or more rote sort of like prescription, unless
Yeah.
it's your business to really do a framework. But you know, framework, I think it's just all gotten mushy when it
Yeah.
basically comes down to business, is that you want someone to really understand what you need, understand your problems, and help you solve it.
Exactly.
And it doesn't need to be fancy and alliterative. And it's fun. Those
Hmm.
things are fun.
So fun.
And there's so much noise out there. So you need to stop it, have someone stop on you for some reason.
Hmm.
But I do think that's been missing in space, especially with most of online businesses are women,
Yeah.
and having that more intuitive, more feminine,
Hmm.
more like, okay, so to take out the competition, because sometimes, that's a whole other
It's
conversation.
so, I
Women
know.
sometimes could be really competitive and not nice to each other, or they could be really bonded. And so
Hmm.
I think both of our works in what we do in life is to unite and bond people and not be competitive to kind of put people down, but to lift everyone up.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
something for everyone out there. And because you do all the research in SEO, like, and it
I know.
validates it. You know what I mean? Like what you
Yeah.
do actually validates. There's so many people searching for so many different things. It's just to align your business with what they're searching for. And
Hmm.
that's always that's a whole other show to figure out that.
It's a whole mind fuck of like, how do you do it? What is this? What does it look like?
Like
Like,
I don't know what there's I don't know what they're searching in the middle of the night. Like, you know what I
exactly.
mean? Like
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint that. And especially when it's like our business, our thing, it can be so hard to like pull ourselves out of it. And that's another one of the cool things with working with my clients is that so many of the people I work with, you, for example, like I am the ICA. So I know what people are searching because I am your ideal client. I know exactly what they're looking for. And we had this conversation too. We'll have to do like another conversation about the SEO journey. But when we were talking about it, I would ask clarifying questions like, have they already done any kind of like spiritual work? Do they realize that they have this problem? Like what did that look like? So that was a lot of fun. But okay, so our story, and then I'll like totally
back. I just wanted to because I think this is important just because when you're looking for someone, and that's how we're going to talk, it's like, I want to know how you found me and why sometimes you connect with people through these screens is just kind of your unconscious, your being is looking for something that they want or someone that you think you would have fun with, connecting with. And then I'll have you go back to
No,
doing.
that's so true. Thank you for everything you shared. I was not expecting that. Thank you so much. I've had a lot of fun working with you. Okay, so I'll kind of like tee up our story and then I will fully hand it over to you and you can ask me all the questions that you want until your heart's content. So you and I were in Marisa Corcoran's Copy Confidence Society program. And I remember because your mom was battling cancer and my mom was battling cancer, and you and I were kind of like half in the program at that point because we had so much life stuff going on. But I vaguely remembered you. I think it was just one call that you were on. I remember you were like walking on the beach or something because you're over in California. And I remember that. And then the next touch point that we had, Marisa had a roundtable group discussion where we were doing something similar to this, but there were more, I think it was all women, more people at the table. And we were talking about our experiences inside CCS. And I was kind of like the point person at the table. And then you and I connected after that on Voxer, and we just like kept voxing back and forth. So I won't say too much other than that because I have a feeling I'll share some of it with the answers to the questions that you're going to ask. But I've enjoyed working with you. And okay, I won't spill anymore.
Thank you for all of that. And thank you for having me do this because, in my world, I was a former therapist. So I'm a therapeutic coach. I work with trauma and I work in the Akashic Records. So trauma and therapy are more, not mainstream now, but much more open, and people talk about those things, and they did. And I've been in this space for like over 20 years. So a lot of my I guess it's pullback, or where I didn't want to be seen, is to utilize my clients in a way that was beneficial for my business, which is stupid because I have a business online and I want to help more people. But
you're so not alone in that.
But I was like, they have wounds, they have trauma. So how can I get the social proof and have other people be like, hey, this is someone that I may want to explore working with in a way that had integrity with me, but also was in a way that it was allowing the other person to really share their story. And then when you did the case study for some of the work that we did, I was like, oh, that is something I would like to incorporate in it. So I would send out, so for those of you in business, like, that your other coaches or people are like, social proof, like splatter the world with social proof. And if it's not easy for you to ask questions, or you feel like that if they really liked you, they would just like let you know, right? You're just leaving it in their court, which is what I did a lot. I like people to have their own sovereignty and to do stuff from their own willingness. But at the same time, you do need these things to have as an aspect, because sometimes people want to know what other people's experiences were of you. So I don't want to discount it, because it is important in your business to have them. And so Brittany was generous enough for me to stumble through my way to do this interview as a teaching tool, not only for me, but for anyone out there that might have the same sort of struggle of like, ooh, I want to get social proof and I would love people to give me feedback, but I don't want to pressure them in a way. Mm-hmm. And I really want to make sure that their story is protected in a way, and also just with a lot of integrity. So I think this is a great way to do it. So my first question was, okay, we know who you are. So this is not, we would add like, who are you? It's Brittany, SEO, copywriter, amazing woman that does a million other things, lives in Connecticut. But but to get into the nitty gritty, as we were on that round table, and we Voxered, what was going on in your life that you were thinking about wanting to change or wanting some help? Like, do you remember like what was going on?
Yeah. There was a lot going on. There trying to figure out like how deep I want to get into it. But basically there were like relationship things that I was working through, both with really like business and personal life relationships. So with another person, but also with myself. And I had been noticing a lot of things probably like, 4 or 5 months before we had that second meeting point at that roundtable, where I just needed a big shift. And I knew what some of the problem spots were, but I didn't really know how to deal with it or how to tackle it. I had been doing it, listening to podcasts, reading books, talking to people, trying to work through stuff on my own, like I always did. And like I knew that I would know when I found it, what that thing was or who that person was that could help guide me through how to change, what to change, whatever transformation that I needed. But I would specifically say, even my relationship with money, and then just relationships and me having my own back, like those were three big things where they just hadn't been there, or they had been neglected, or I was like ready to tackle them.
And I don't want to, I mean, you're in a whole different space now, so
Yeah.
I don't really want to take you back to that feeling state
Oh,
to
it's
be in
okay.
it. But do you remember feeling a certain way about life or about your relationships? Was it like anger, frustration, sadness, or another emotion that you might just put to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of frustration. I would also say, um at one point, and I think it was, you know, several months before you and I started talking, but um hopelessness a bit, just like didn't really know, very lost, very confused, very much like grasping at straws, like what can I do? What's going to work? And like you said, I'm in a totally different space now. And because of the work with you, it doesn't, if it's so wild, like this, you get this, but anyone watching this, like you may not get this until you have Akashic Records readings, but like I can reflect back on it and I'm not tethered to that moment. And that's like the big magic of working with you. So it's cool, even just with this exercise. I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember. I was very sad. I was very hopeless at one point. I was very frustrated. Very, I guess there was a little bit of anger more directed at me than anything else. Like, why can't I do it? Why can't I get it? Why isn't this working?
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, and when you're in that place too, and and for anyone out there, this is kind of a little aside of this, but when you're working so hard at something and not getting somewhere, then it gets almost like that hopeless feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need something to get outside of ourselves because we have blind spots that we can't see. We all do. Like I have my own teachers and my own healing, it's continuous. It's not just this one magic thing. But I think sometimes we're like, oh, if we do this one thing or have this one, you know, buy this program or do like a morning routine or do something. But a lot of times, once you've exhausted all the things that you think that it is, then, and you're not sure what, that's this next step that I want you to talk about if you
Mm-hmm.
can. Like, did you, what did you glean or what did you like about the sessions or how the work went? Or, I mean, there are many questions. So let me just talk the first one. What, after your experience, and as we did like the first session, or you can talk to any of that, what is your interpretation of what the Akashic records are?
Ooh, what is my
Not
interpretation of what the Akashic Records are? This was like the weirdest thing where people would, and even talking with you, like I got it, but I wasn't sure if I got it. And I was like, okay. So the way that people, I remember them describing it was like all of the information, all of the possibilities in this world that have happened, could happen, are happening, like just all the information. And I was like, okay, where is it stored? Where's the hard drive? What is happening? And after that first session, how would I describe that? It was just like all of the events that had happened in my life and all of the possibilities. I think that's how I would try to like distill that down. Um, but yeah, it's still like a very big, it's very like you can't see it. It's just like energy. It's just out there. It's like this all knowing. So probably it's easier for people if you are religious and you do have a god or gods that you follow and believe in, like it's probably easier for maybe you to relate to that than it was for me, because I was like, what? There's just like all this stuff out there.
And that stuff is specific to you, which is even more wild, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of and then so even though like it is a big thing, like what are the Akashic? Can I go to the library? What could I check it
Right.
out? Like, how do I get there? And that how did you feel? Did you feel once we were in session? And if you don't, like there's no right answer, obviously, but like so as we go into a session or come like the before and after, do you feel a difference when you're in it and that your records are open and we're working in that other than when you're not in, like I'm not specifically like opening Brittany's records
Yeah,
and
I
close.
would say there's a difference. And you, I mean, since we've worked together, like you know that I'm pretty sensitive. She'll do distance work with me. Like I have to share this because it's just like so timely. I had a migraine that wouldn't go away for like 2, 3 days. And finally I was like, I didn't want to bother you, but I was like, okay, fine. Like, let me just like message Donna. She'd probably want me to anyway. So I messaged Donna and she's like, oh, I'll check. And I didn't see that message. I just felt the migraine go away. It was just like I had a hat on and like you took the hat off, and I checked the messages and it was like 2 minutes before that you were like, I'm gonna go check. So I think I'm very sensitive to the work in a good way, where it's like the stuff moves through quickly, stuff gets processed quickly. I just need someone else to like help me push the button, like make the machinery go. Um, that I do feel like I can tell a difference, like when the records are open and when they're not. But I do find that it's easier, since having worked with you and gone through several sessions, it's easier for me to kind of know what to tap into and do some of that self work. Although it's nicer having someone guide you. Like it's just nicer.
It is. I mean, and that's kind of the beauty of it because they're your records. And even though I have a way where I open the records to get information, the records are always available to everyone all the time. And just learning that you have that extra level of support. But, when you're with another person, they can see stuff differently than what you do.
Yep.
So, and a lot of times just having that confirmation that like, oh, I was feeling that. Oh, okay. Yeah, that helps solidify like, oh, okay, this is, I'm aligned with what I need to align with,
Mhm.
because, we have our ego in there, we have like dreams and hopes and, and then we have emotions. There's lots of stuff swirling inside of us. So then to really disseminate, like, when are we in our aligned high heart, high power, with the information that we're getting is true and aligned,
Mhm.
divine for us. It's a lot, especially when there isn't a book and be like, oh, this happened to me here and this happened on my
Right.
timeline.
I'm like, yeah, I can see all of it. I don't know what your next question is, but I do want to share. And if I touch on any other questions, let me know. I'm gonna, I guess this is like a trigger warning, because like the very first session that you and I had talk about confirmation, I will put a trigger warning somewhere. I haven't said this publicly yet, but I had a miscarriage. And on the very first call, we had talked about some stuff. I had not said a word of that to you. And the question that I had for you, because you always invite me to bring questions and you're like, it's not a yes or no question, it's an open-ended question. And what's on your heart, what's on your mind, what's coming into like your brain, like what do you want to talk about? And it was a very, very different question. And like I said, you had no idea. And instantly you were like, okay, do you want to talk about this? And I like broke down because I wasn't even sure that that had happened. And you and I talked about that more in detail, but like I wasn't even sure that it had happened. I was like, maybe I made that up. Maybe that was just like, I was under a lot of stress and something else was happening. And so for you to say that, it was like, okay, confirmation. And then there's a way that we can like work with this and not deal with it, but like work with it, process it. And since then, like that's been changing, like life changing.
Good. And I'm getting chills when you said that. So someone out there needs to know, like,
Yeah.
sometimes what we think we know it is, or what our problem is really, and where it stems isn't. And that's one of the reasons why the Akashic Records is so great, especially for any significant event we have in our life that state has not been processed, is because it shows up the first, like, that came up because you were ready to heal it.
Yeah.
It's not like we're doing like, ooh, let's get into all of like wounds. We're not trying to find wounds and open them with it.
Hmm.
I mean, that's not how I work anyway.
No.
However, there's no forcing. It's just whatever is ready to be revealed and to be healed is ready. And typically, um, from your story, as we pieced it together, is like you're feeling frustration. You knew something was going on and you weren't really sure how to access it. But even though you're super um, like intelligent, physically, mentally, and emotionally, but where do you put your attention, right? Which
Yeah.
thing? And the records, once they're open, they just kind of show you a pathway that you could choose or not. So, and the records are just for anyone that's asking, like, what are the Akashic Records? They are a blueprint of anything that your soul's ever done, is doing, or will do. But it's not ordained, it's not predestined, there's not channeling, it's not
Hmm.
fortune telling. It's really about allowing you to, what's up with you, to be healed, that wants to be healed, and then different sorts of options and paradigm shifts or perspectives that you could take if you'd want to, in order to um, get to the end goal of whatever it is. So yours was money frustration.
Hmm.
Um, and so healing this thing, and there's always lots of emotions that don't make a lot of logical sense to us about what's encapsulating around a trauma or
Yeah.
a significant event. So yours happened to be wrapped around this one event, and then it was related to your finances in some way. So, and sometimes we know exactly, but a lot of times we don't know. We just trust that when this gets healed, then things start to shift.
Hmm.
So that does lead me into like, so what has like shifted, um, like feeling wise and even practical wise or tactile, like in your life, have shifted since our first session together?
So much. And I'm probably gonna leave things out. So if I do, I'll try to like put it in the description or update the blog that I wrote. But um my relationship with myself is very different. Like and we've talked about this, but like a lot of like, you're not worthy, you're not enough. Like those are kind of like the core, if you peel back all the layers of the onion of like anything that we're feeling, most of the time it's going to go to like, I'm not enough or I'm not worthy. And I was definitely having both of those, and they were showing up, and every once in a while they will still try to show up, but like that has shifted big time. Like I mentioned, not having my own back, not really feeling like, I don't think I ever really spoke up for or identified what it was that I wanted or what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. I, you know, was historically like the straight A, goody two shoes, teacher's pet. Like that was me. I had all the friends. I didn't really fall into any of like the cliques. I was like the floater in all the friend groups. And so I was used to blending in. And I thought I was standing out and I wanted to stand out, but at the same time there was this internal like, no, like you have to blend in, you can't stand out. Like it was a protection thing. But I would say my relationship with myself has been very, very different. I would say like if anyone watching is like into learning about like the masculine and feminine energy and energetics, for me, I was so in my masculine because I always needed to be, like from a very young age. And I really got detached from my feminine, and that was showing up, and that was causing a lot of the problems in my relationship, like business and personal relationships. So that has totally shifted. That's probably the most difficult thing for me to still kind of like massage out, but it's way different than it was. I'm actually able to like receive. I'm able to go with the flow. I'm able to not push. I'm able to like trust. And that's big. Like that's really, really big for me. And then with like my relationship with money, I think that was what's, sparked the whole idea for this conversation, because you and I started really diving in March of 2023, and we were here in November of 2023. And it took from like March until October, I would say, where I had some really low lows, really low financial lows. And that was where I'm like, I'm working with Donna, I'm doing all the things, I'm like doing all the work. And I'm like, why isn't it clicking? And you were like, it's just, the work has to, it needs some time to integrate. It needs some time to like strip the old, bring in the new. And that was probably the most frustrating part of the process. But at the same time, now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, thank God I went through it because it's good. It's big. Like I'm kind of like rebirthing, reinventing myself, especially in a business sense, and in a personal sense. So I would say those are like the big overarching things that I could point to that have happened.
Well, that's huge. I mean, and that you were willing to share your trauma openly and you feel good about it and you're not attached to it.
I'm not.
It's like there's nothing around emotionally charged around that, which is huge. And all the growth that you did and going through you know, growth is not we straight up like, oh, I do this little thing and it's so great because it really, like beyond the healing of what happens. Um, then there is a time to, you're still attracting those things. You still are
Mm-hmm.
creating energy to kind of make the thing happen over and over again as a protection. That's the whole thing. I don't want to get totally into it, but I just want to put some of this in context for people. So as you do the work and then that wound is gone or that behavior around holding the wound together or hiding the wound or not processing the wound is released, then you have to find out new behaviors and your new energy attractions. And then the universe is just interesting that it just like when you feel like you've done everything and you're on this and then you're like it's going to happen, then it goes lower. I don't know why. I
I
mean, I'm
know.
sure I do, but give really something eloquent, but just in the essence it feels like you're even in a darker place than you are. You're like, what the, I've put money towards this thing, I've done this work, and why is it not immediately shifting? And also it gives to give your time that you trust yourself, that you actually can do it. So those things have to also become true for you. um, we can't always fake it till we make it. Like we can on some things, but your ego needs to know that that is the new truth for you,
Mm-hmm.
because your ego is helping. It's what keeps you bound here in the earth. Like we don't want to get rid of our ego. We just want to give it new things to do. So for you, it's like, oh, I want to receive. I am worthy. So what is receiving? And receiving is huge,
Mm-hmm.
especially in receiving money, receiving anything, receiving joy, receiving accolades, receiving. And if you haven't been receiving, it's going to take some time for you to physically, mentally, and emotionally create the space to receive that you feel safe when you receive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's creating that safe and that receiving
And
is the beautiful part.
yeah, I will say it was so hard for me and it was so foreign for me to receive. And so like I just want to share this in case it helps anyone, but I every time I had the opportunity, like if I went out for lunch with a friend or something and we do the whole like I'm going to cover this. No, I'm going to cover this. And I'm always the one that like I will fight somebody tooth and nail if I've already decided that I'm going to pay for lunch or something, like I'm going to do it. And I recognized in those moments, I'm like, oh, okay, this is an opportunity. Thank you. And then it's like just practicing that. So anytime I could say yes, I made myself say yes. Like I made sure the other person knew I appreciated it, but I made myself say yes in like just receiving whatever it was. It could have been a card, it could have been like a compliment, it could have been anything. Help. Like whatever it was, I was like, all right, we're just gonna do this. Do this.
And then look at the benefits, how then you're able to receive money from people for business, but then also you're able to receive so many other things from yourself, right? That
Yeah.
you can be your own advocate and have your back. And that doesn't mean that you have to do everything and say no to certain things. And you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you're an island, that you can't receive and you're doing it all, because that depletes you. And it
Mhm.
also helps in your relationship too, to be like, okay, what is that flow? Where is it? It's never equal. Like relationships, you should treat your partner equal, but it's never a balance. It never like, it's not always like going to be here. Someone's always going to have a different role throughout.
Mhm.
And part of managing or just understanding that space, but receiving is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so happy for you actually that
Thanks. I'm happy
is
for me
like,
too.
you know what I mean? Like that is to embody that and as to be like, of course I want money, so I want to receive. It's not that simple. If you're
Nope.
saying no to things, the energetics of that is saying no everywhere. It's not just like, oh, I'm saying no to everything else, but I want all this money. That doesn't
Yeah.
really, that's not how it works,
No.
unfortunately.
And that was really wild. The other wild thing to me is like, okay, so you come from a healthcare background with being a therapist. I come from a healthcare background of being a massage therapist, and here we are in both of us in this online space. This stuff really didn't show up too much with my massage practice. I was very much like in control, um, able to give the client like a really nice, caring, thoughtful experience, but I was very much in the helper provider role. Um, there were times where there was give back, again, whether that's monetary or help. Like I had a client rescue me from like, I can't remember, I think my car broke down, but like there have been clients that have like stepped up and done stuff like that. But like online business specifically has brought a lot more of this stuff to the surface for me than in-person massage practice, which was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah. And I think me too, like my in-person worlds when I did things was just like, oh, you got clients and people refer you, and it just kind of worked. There was
Yeah,
no marketing, there was no figuring out things. I mean, I could, but you know, I was fortunate not to have to.
same.
And then in here, I'm like, what? Like I have to do all these things, and then it brings out this weird. Um, I think, and this is just me theorizing on this, but because the potential is so vast, like when you're in a town, you know how many people you can and you show up to your work. You know what I mean? That's like
Mhm.
you put so many hours in and you have a schedule and you have this thing and you go there and people go there. So that's kind of finite in a way, right?
Mhm.
But because you're in a space that's unlimited through technology, and yes, you have your hours and you do this, but it's really still, you could still do vast. There's all this thing of like what's trending or whatever, viral, going viral. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
it. That's a thing. So there's a potential that so many other people could see you and or judge you that it then's like, oh, how do I want to present myself or what do I need to show up and do perfectly? Because I
Mm.
think, relate on the perfection thing, like being straight students and always like, oh, if you give me a thing or you give me a test, you give me a way, I'm your gal. Like
Yeah.
I could really do this. But when it's in the ether through like online stuff, like there's, you know, you're like, huh, what? How does that happen? So it brings up all of the deeper things that
I
are,
didn't think about that, but that makes so much sense.
you know, it's just like, oh, and then now I could be seen. Should I be seen? How do I want to be seen? What if this other person that I don't even know, I don't even care about says something? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just like, because, you know, people, and during this time too, social media went from, I mean, I think there was always bullies and stuff, but
Mhm.
the last several years, there was a lot of divisiveness, a lot of cancel culture, a lot of fear, you know, so putting you out in a new space could potentially backfire,
Yeah. That
right?
makes a
And
lot of sense.
so there's a lot of fear in that energy. Um, but that you're doing the work of receiving and then not that you don't care, but it doesn't affect you if someone's going to say something like, you know, you could share your truth, whatever it is, and you feel comfortable. And, you know, it is what it is because there's no emotion. You know, you're not looking for someone to attack you and then make you feel bad, you know,
Mhm.
because that's usually what we do in relationships. We do something even we don't want it, and then that thing happens and like it reinforces our belief or
Mhm.
the energy around the trauma or whatever it is. So I just think that I'm like, I was grateful having you as a client, you know, to have this on this journey. And I really appreciate you expressing the lull period, how much that sucked, because I think people need to know that when you're in healing or growth, it's there's always a moment where it's really tough and you could either give up or you can expand.
Mhm.
And that you chose to continue and expand, or not be like, "Ugh,"
Yeah.
like next.
Right. No, I mean, I was definitely committed to it, but it did suck. And you do, like, I mean, you described it perfectly. Like, you get on this healing journey and you're like, this just is good, it's going to be an upward trajectory. And it's like not. But when you were describing, like, you hit a low and then you go lower, the thing I was thinking about, just because I'm like where I'm at now, is almost like one of those like Matchbox cars. So you like pull it back and you're pulling it back so it can spring so far forward. So maybe
Yes.
that's a little bit of it. Like, you have to be pulled so far back, so far down, that you can just like go off and just be super abundant.
Well, there's so many universal laws, but that's one of them, is like for every action, there's an equal or reaction. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you want so much expansion, then it also has to go down lower. There's also, many things of like trees or just poles, things like that. To have more stability and
Right.
longevity, you have to go deeper and down. So going down doesn't always equate with I'm doing the right thing, I'm
Yeah.
healing these things. Why isn't it the timing exact? And there's also universal timing, like the timing of the universe and time. That's a whole other conversation. Is it real? Is
Mm-hmm.
it whatever? But our time versus when it is the more aligned time, the perfect timing, doesn't always coincide with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it does, but sometimes there's those moments. And I find also with the universe, anything I've healed, and if you want to speak to this, I would love to have your experiences. Anytime I've healed stuff, like, okay, I've healed that, I'm good. Immediately, something comes up to trigger those feelings and the reaction. So it gives me the opportunity to either do the same reactions
Mm-hmm.
and go down that route, or I can be like, no, respond like that doesn't really bother me anymore. This is how I want to respond. So it's also giving me tools to find new behaviors, to be like, when this thing presents itself and triggers those emotions, are they really triggered, or is it just environment, is what I'm used to? It's it's a behavior. And then, oh, okay, that I don't really feel like that way. I don't really want to respond that way. How do I want to respond? And now I can create new neural pathways and new ways of behavior that could be unroad around this issue.
Yeah. That's definitely shown up. A couple of examples like floated to the top of my brain. One of them is like, well, actually both of them. Both of them were decisions that I made. And I'm normally the person that like avoids all tough conversations because like I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to let anyone down. If I have started something, I need to see it all the way through. And these are all messages that like I didn't learn. I just told myself. It's just like this internal thing that's been me. And there were two things specifically that I'm thinking of where I said yes, and then I got into it and I was like, wait, this doesn't feel like it's going to be the right thing for me. And then I had to have the conversation. I had to realize that, come to terms with that myself, and then have the conversation with the other person involved and be like, this is where I'm at. And one of the times, the person was like very, very gracious and like understanding. And the other time, the person was less gracious and understanding. And again, it's like, okay, that's them. Me going on this healing journey has definitely opened my eyes to, and like my boyfriend and I talk about this all the time because now we've healed a lot of our stuff and we can see it in other people. So I can't imagine what your life is like. It must be like super entertaining, but also very frustrating of like, oh, I can help you. Do you want? No. Okay. So like, but it's very much like I can see that in you. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole, but like I see that and I hope you find peace and find help at some point in your life. And it's helped me to recognize that because previously I probably would have just gotten really frustrated.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's really kind of what essentially all this stuff does, is lead to have more peace in your life, easy, and you get what you really want. Because if you want it, it is available to you. Sometimes it's just not going to be handed in a little bow at your doorstep. But, you can't, like, if you have dreams of having whatever it is, maybe whatever you don't have now that you really want in your life, or if you have it and you want it better or bigger, if you think of it and that comes to you, then it's definitely for you to have.
Mhm.
get. It's just then what might be stopping you, like the beliefs that you had that they're the restrictions. We all put restrictions on ourselves. Some are learned, some are who knows where. It just decides like I'm this person because
Yeah.
if I say what if I keep my word, then people are gonna think that I'm good, they're gonna like me, and then I'm gonna like me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it doesn't really serve you, then it's just a life of always being in that caught doing stuff you don't want to do. And
Mhm.
that you broke that habit of doing that is huge. Because I think a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people get into habits of doing stuff we don't want to do and talk ourselves into staying into something.
Yep. I've done that way too often, way too long. But I'm grateful that I had that because now I can be like, oh, I did that thing that one time. I don't have to do it again. It's very freeing and very empowering. But it initially when at least when I have those thoughts of like, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be, or what I want to do, or how I want to spend my time and energy, or like, oh, I'm noticing that this is an energy drain and that's not good for me. And then that trickles over into these other things. That's like the sucky part. But then once I make the decision to like, okay, I'm going to have the tough conversation, I'm going to handle this, I'm going to be able to remove myself from the situation, then it's like, oh, okay, cool.
That is awesome. And it builds more trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so, other than thinking you have to forcibly have your back, you have your back because you trust yourself. And, like, yeah, make the decision. And then if it doesn't work out, you have options. You're not locked in,
Right.
right? So you can always, like, no matter what, you could respond in your life. And that is builds trust with yourself. And it's also empowering. And then you get means like, okay, I can really do anything. I can change my business, my life on a dime, and I could figure out how to make what I want happen,
Yeah.
which a very useful tool.
It's very helpful,
In the
especially for your group of people that you help, because you mostly focus with female entrepreneurs. And so like a lot of us, we do have those not so wonderful habits and beliefs and things.
yeah. So is there anything like well, I have two more questions. One,
Mhm.
how would you because what, I'm not even sure if anyone kind of understands what we do at the end of this conversation, but um because it's a little more esoteric, but also very practical, it's
Mhm.
both. What would you say to someone that, or how would you describe like the experience in like a few sentences of getting your Akashic records done, if you
Yeah.
can?
Oh, I have, because I've sent you
Okay.
people. And so of course their question is always like, what is this? Like, what am I walking into? And even still, I mean, when you and I first connected and we were talking on Voxer, one, I love that you said that you had been a therapist, because I knew I had some shit in my past. And I was like, all right, if anything comes out, like I feel good about it coming out like in a space with you. I felt very comfortable that you would like hold space, and you totally have. You've gone above and beyond that. Um, but when either I've mentioned it to a person or they're curious about it and they've asked me a question, the easiest way to describe it is just like, it's just like this. You and I are on Zoom because you're over in California, I'm over in Connecticut. We get on here, we talk a little bit at the beginning of, like I said, the questions that I might have, or just like things that are going on. And then we formulate a question that you can think of as you're going into the records, and I can think of. Um, so we start there, and then there's just kind of like opening moment of like, all right, I'm gonna go into your records, and there's like, I guess I would call it like ceremony is the word that is coming up, but it's like brief. It's just like, okay, you do whatever you have to do, you get in the records. And then a lot of times we do talk like this. Like I thought for a while that it was just gonna be like, okay, I'm over here and I'm like, like I can see you like one eye open. But like we talk through things, and then if there is any moment that I need to just like go in or visualize something, then I close my eyes and you guide me through something, or you ask me questions and you guide whatever that is. And usually I find whatever it is that I need to find, whether it's a belief I need to like shift, whether it's a moment in my life, a memory that I'm going back to. I'm like, oh, that's tied to, even just like with the miscarriage, that's tied to me with like a money block. What? um, so it's any of those moments, visualizations, going back to certain moments in my life, uncovering things. Sometimes you'll ask a question and it's like whatever the initial response is that comes to mind, like that's the thing that we address. You usually walk me through some kind of exercise to address things or to ask whatever questions I need or talk to whoever I need to talk to. And then you make sure that I feel good about whatever that is. And then we wrap up. And then sometimes we talk about stuff afterwards. Sometimes, like the very first session, you were like, you don't need to say any words. Like you can follow up with me in a few days if you feel like it, but you don't have to. And of course, me being me, I was like, okay, I'll go process on my own. And then I like messaged you the next day. So I mean, it's a lot of like if I had to explain or tie it to like some other event or experience that someone might have had, I might say it's kind of closely related to like being after a yoga class and you're in Shavasana and someone is guiding you through something. Like you could think of it like that. But the only thing that's going on is like you're going inward.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like how you explain all because it's very experiential for you. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's also I think why it's empowering, and you could let me know if you believe that too, is because it's not just I'm doing things or telling you information. You really get to experience, and we're in it together, and I'm helping some of the things if you can't see or guide or what comes. So it's more focused, but
Mhm.
it's your experience, it's your healing. You doing that is healing for you. It's not that I'm doing anything like, and you're just receiving. I
Yeah,
mean,
no. Not, but I mean, sometimes, like sometimes there will be beliefs that you'll reset or something like that, but I'm still doing a lot of like the digging and doing like the inner work. And I guess another thing to clarify too is like whatever I'm picturing, it's not like you're right there in the picture. Like it's not like we're both in the visualization. Like you're asking questions and then whatever picture comes to mind is just me. So it's still a very like individual experience, but you are like you're guiding and you're guiding, like you're helping me get to the place that I need to get to in order to find the answer to the question that I posed at the beginning of the session.
yes. And I don't know. I think you have this like sometimes the question you ask and where you go is like, huh? But then it makes sense at the end.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, that thing. Okay. And of course my brain like pieces it together pretty quickly, but initially I'm like, what? We went here?
Like I don't know. And that's the other thing. It also gives you control and safety so
Mhm.
that you can choose or not choose to go into places, and you could share or not share so you feel safe. And that's part of it is also the safety. So that I guess that's should be my another question to the last question I'm going to ask you is did you feel safe with me? Was it something that you feel like, okay, did it take time to trust me, or did it take like you're like, okay, I see where she's going, and I mean, I know you said that about the therapy part that I had that
Right.
for you, but like when we're in the sessions,
Yeah.
feel safe. I don't think I've ever asked any clients
I
that.
don't
So
think you, oh, okay. I was gonna say you certainly haven't asked me. Yeah, no, immediately. I mean, especially like from jumping off with like that deep of a question, like, do you want to talk about your miscarriage? And like, okay. And then like whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And like I never thought that I would have that. Like I used to talk about that event and hushed tones, maybe like three or four of my friends knew about it. Like there was a whole lot of stuff wrapped up around that. And just being able to go in that one question for that one piece of work it really was life changing because I'm not emotionally tethered to that event. I still look at it and it's like it's very sad, but I also have a little bit more understanding around it. And I was, we were able to walk through some of the visualizations which really helped me to heal. And yeah, I mean, the second you posed that question, I was like, all right, Donna's my girl. We're here. Like this is gonna be a wild ride. And yeah, I mean, if I didn't feel safe, one, I wouldn't have been on the call with you. Two, that question would not have ever come up because I never mentioned it to you. That was something that you picked up on. And like, if I wasn't ready to deal with it, I've done enough of this work that I know that that would not have come up. And then the way that we handled it or you handled it and just like the transformation that's happened, like, yeah, I trust you like a whole lot. And I do feel very safe with you.
right. Well, thank you. I didn't expect all that beautiful stuff, so I appreciate that. And then I have one final question. What was the
Mhm.
most unexpected thing that you have gained through this work?
I'm making a lot of decisions that I never would have before. And it's for the betterment of me and for the expansion and for the growth. And I really thought this may be a better way to answer this. I really thought like all the stuff that I'm saying I have now, I really thought I had that. Like I thought I was patient. I thought I was healed. I thought I was good. I thought I had like a great disposition. And now being here, I'm like, you didn't have any of that shit. Like, I don't
Well,
know,
I think you did. I think it was just
not
like
to this level.
just a deeper, more expanded out, like feeling it probably more often.
Yeah. And just like living it and being embodied in it more for sure. But like it really doesn't feel like I had it at all. Like, what were you
Well, that's
thinking?
interesting though, but like because you wanted that like that thing, and then now you're
Possibly.
embodied it,
Yeah.
which is
That
huge.
mhm.
It's different. Yeah, when I've embodied stuff, so I get that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's that was something smart that came out of my mouth. Yeah, I definitely am embodied in it now. Whereas maybe I previously I was just like, I think I have this. Logically I was there, but like physically, emotionally, soul level, I wasn't there.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, now this thing is how I want to be in the world. Now I am like in
Yeah.
every aspect of my being,
Yeah.
which is that's awesome.
I know.
That's
I mean, thank you.
thank you. All right, well, thank
Okay.
you so much for answering all my questions and being
Yeah.
so vulnerable and so gracious, and I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay, so that was definitely like if you're watching and if you're like, what did I just watch? That's kind of how a case study interview could go. Because what's going to happen now is that like I can chop off the beginning and the end of this recording. Donna can go and use this. She could put it on her, on a blog post where she maybe writes up a case study about working with me or something like that. And that's a visual and an auditory way that someone could connect with you and see how the work happens. Um, the main things that you want to get, and Donna already has a lot of this, but like the main things that you want to get when you're going through a case study interview, where either that's the intention that like this video is going to serve as the case study, or you're recording so that you can pull quotes from it and do a written case study. The main things you want to get are like, where was the person at before? What was the experience like of working with you? And what is possible now, or what results do they have as a result of working with you? So, like, in a very distilled, boiled down sense of things, like, those are the three parts that you want. Those are the three pieces. And that's what really makes a great case study, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube video, or a blog. So hopefully that helps. But if you have any questions, let me know. I've got lots of links for Donna, which I'm going to put down in the description. You may see this video over on her YouTube as well. I'm not sure how we're both going to use this, but like we're going to see. This was really fun though, and you can definitely expect there are going to be more guests that I'm going to bring. I have a long guest list. I am like so fortunate to know a lot of amazing people, and I want you to know them too. So I'm going to bring them on. Of course, after all of them, like ask any questions, put them in the comments, reach out to Donna, ask questions. You can reach out to me, ask questions, whatever it is. Like, let me see. I'm just like checking my notes to see if there's anything else. Nope, I think that's it. So if you have questions, leave them. Like and subscribe the video, of course, pretty please. We would love that. And come find us if you have any questions. All right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.